This is the beautiful Irrawaddy River, where something very worrying is happening. Here's some background. The Irrawaddy is in Myanmar, and it's special because it's one of the last and the largest free-flowing rivers in the whole of Southeast Asia, and it has a seriously important job to do. What's that, you ask? Well, it acts like a giant conveyor belt carrying sediment from the mountains all the way down to the delta. And it's sediment that we need to talk about. Sediment is made up of these guys, meet Stony and Silty. Silty's job is to make sure everyone in Myanmar has something to eat. He does this by feeding the fish down below, who in turn feed the people up above. And because Silty is so packed with nutrients, he makes Myanmar's huge delta super fertile so we can grow lots of crops, including a whopping 50% of the country's rice. Meanwhile, Stony's job is to keep the millions of people living around the Irrawaddy safe. He does this by not only building, but maintaining the shape of the river. And, critically, Stony keeps the delta above sea level. Now that's a big deal, because Myanmar is the world's second most vulnerable country to rising sea levels. So what's the problem? Well, something is stopping Stony and Silty from doing their jobs. Us. Upstream, we're building big hydropower dams that are blocking up the river, and we're cutting down the trees that keeps its banks stable. That results in lots of erosion. Mining for minerals only makes matters worse. Meanwhile, downstream, we're doing lots of sand mining so the sediment can be turned into concrete to build houses and factories. All these activities have caused a dangerous imbalance in the Irrawaddy River. There's not enough sediment downstream and too much sediment upstream. Because of all the dams, the river's flow is too weak to carry the load. This backlog of sediment has made the river wider and much more shallow than it should be. This is a nightmare for boats, and it increases the risk of the river overflowing. If Stony and Silty don't make it down to the delta, the 40 million people here could lose everything. Because the delta will become extra vulnerable to tropical storms, and fill up with seawater, and with a lack of Silty's nutrients, Myanmar will starve. So what do we need to do to save this special river? We need to stop interfering with Stony and Silty's journey from upstream down to the delta. We need to reduce deforestation and only build sustainable dams that mimic the river's natural flow. And we really need to regulate sand mining so the critical delta stays afloat. The river has taken thousands of years to reach its perfect natural balance. We can't afford to risk destroying it. But with a little care and consideration, it is possible to manage the Irrawaddy River. We're going to need to, for the benefit of us and for the benefit of everyone who calls Myanmar home.